Welcome back to Pain and Revival Podcast. I hope everyone is having a great day. Today, I have a very, very special guest, Dr. Jack Bourla. How are you today?
I've never been better. Thanks for asking.
That's great. All right, so I think we're going to go ahead and you can take it over and just kind of tell me your story. I'm sure you have something great to say.
Sure. So the theme is kind of the pain and overcoming the pain, and trying to restore what we would call a normal, quote unquote, normal lifestyle. And it happened to me, but I was not the direct in effect of this pain that I'm going to tell you about. My first wife, who was an extremely outgoing, energetic, people-loving woman, one day woke up, excuse me, and she experienced agoraphobia. Agoraphobia, the little translation, means fear of the marketplace. And so this woman who was working, going out, being a mom of two, suddenly could not leave the threshold of our front door. And if she tried to, she would have this enormous panic attack where her heart rate would go sky high. She couldn't breathe. It felt like an elephant was stepping on her chest. It was her typical panic attack where she thought she was going to die. And so she could not leave the threshold of our home for about 2 years. And I was young. We married. I was young. She was 5 years older than me. She had two kids. And so we had this family unit and we were raising these kids. And I trying to live a normal life just like anybody else at the age of about 25. And it got to the point where I just couldn't do this anymore. And it's not that I was giving up, but I couldn't do it anymore. The stress on my life was just tremendous, and I knew the stress on her life was tremendous. And so we decided that we're going to separate. And in order for us to separate, she had to go live with her mother, who unfortunately was an alcoholic, um, a functioning alcoholic, but an alcoholic nonetheless. And my ex-wife had this real aversion to alcohol. But anyway, so she went to go live with her mother, and the boys went to go live. One went to live with their father. One went to go live with their other grandmother. But before we separated, we tried a number of things. And so I had found a therapy group in a nearby city. But in order to get there, in order to be in the therapy group, you had to get there. And the problem with her is that she couldn't leave the front door. So we went through this process where every day she would like put her foot out the front door. And then she would experience this panic attack, and then she'd bring it back in. And then the next day she put her foot out a little bit more, and then would have the panic attack. And so every day got a little bit better. She still experienced the panic attack, but it was less severe. And finally, we got to the point after about 2 years of getting her into the parking lot of the building where the therapy group took place, and she could never get out of the car. So her panic attacks were overwhelming, so we'd go home. And so finally we decided that we were going to split up. And this is not something that either one of us wanted to do. But she recognized that, I had to go on with my life and her kids had to go on with their life, and she had to somehow get some help. And so she lived with her mom for a while, and she was not happy. I was not happy. The kids weren't happy. Um, but we knew that there would be a good outcome because we trusted in the universe, we trusted in God. And so we knew that something good was going to happen. And she started making inquiries, and she found a therapist who dealt with a number of these types of issues. And he was a quadriplegic. He could not use his arms or his legs. And when she found out about the guy and interviewed with him, she told herself, if this guy can make a life out of not using his arms and legs, he had a tragic injury. She said that I can too. And so that kind of gave her the inspiration. So she was able to start going to this group. And so she was in a one-on-one setting until he felt that she was ready to graduate into a group setting. And then she got into the group setting. And after, I don't know, maybe 6 or 9 months of this therapy, she got back to herself again. And so we got back together. But the lessons that we learned is that none of us has to do this alone. And the pain that one experiences is not just the pain that the individual experiences, it affects everybody. And so we learned that trust in the universe, trust in God, trust that the right things will happen for the right reasons at the right time. And for her, it certainly did. And so she went from never being able to put her foot out of that front door, not even a toe, to being able to function as she had before. She still had panic attacks from time to time. They were less severe, less often, and she knew how to manage them because she was given the tools by this therapist. So her life was restored, and that was awesome for all of us. So we all got back together, and life goes on.
Yeah, so was it hard, like, getting the whole family back together? Like, was there, like, I imagine there was arguments and it was, like, a hard situation.
Actually, you know what? After having gone through this situation where my wife and the kid's mom, and even our friends were involved too, because we had this great network of friends, and we could no longer do things with them. So for us, it was a celebration. It was a victory of normalcy. We were able to get back together as this core unit. And so for us, it wasn't difficult getting back together. In fact, it was a celebration getting back together. And the boys certainly wanted to come back. One of the boys actually stayed with their grandmother, but would come see us often. So we were able to maintain a family unit again. We had holidays together, and all the things that we were doing prior to this incident where she developed this agoraphobia. So the pain that we all endured during this 2.5 year period was incredible, was unsurmountable. But the joy in getting back together and then reestablishing this normal routine of living life as we had in the past was just, it was very joyous, and we were all glad to put that behind us. But we always knew that at any time something could happen to mom again and to my wife, and that but she learned the tools to handle these panic attacks. And anybody who's experiencing panic attacks knows that it feels like you want to die.
Yeah.
It's just, there's this impending feeling of doom. There's hopelessness. There's despair, and those are serious emotions that people do experience. What I'd hope that maybe the listeners on this podcast will realize is that there are people out there who can help you, and that there is hope for everybody. And it just takes a will. And sometimes you got to hit rock bottom. And in most cases, I think you do. You hit rock bottom before you realize that I can go up, I can go on and live, I can contribute, and I can live, this normal life that we all love to do.
Yeah. I mean, like, I totally relate. Like, the panic attacks, I used to have like panic attacks all the time when I lived
Yeah,
with my mom. And it's such a hard thing because all of those emotions are very serious emotions, but then they're coming at you at like 90 miles per hour. And so you don't have enough time to kind of control them or even like process them or, anything. And so I
sure.
think that it's such your story, that story specifically, is such an amazing way to help people, and people
Yeah,
can see that, it's going to be okay in the end and that it
yeah.
does work out.
And if you have that as your guide, that it's going to be okay in the end. Yes, there's going to be some difficulties. Yes, there's going to be some challenges. Um, but if you haven't lost your life, there's always hope. And
Right.
so we always hung on to that hope portion of it. We hung on to that, the what if. We lived with the possibilities and not the probabilities. And so the possibilities that we could restore her life back to normal, we could bring the family back together, and we can go on and live, this great life, which is what we had done for many, many years. What I commend you on is that at your young age, you've learned how to deal with what you went through, these panic attacks. And so you should be commended for that. uh, Kids your age shouldn't have panic attacks. No one should have a panic attack,
Yeah.
but certainly kids your age shouldn't have it, especially for the reasons that you had to endure those.
Yeah. I mean, it's a hard thing, but like I feel like I get pity a lot. Like people are like, "Oh, I'm so sorry for you," and I understand that. But like, it happened and it's
Yeah,
made me who I am, and if I didn't go through the pain that I went through, I would not be who I am, and I wouldn't be able to have the heart that I have and or any of it.
you're
So,
absolutely right. And again, you know, and it's not to make you sound like a kid, but at your level, at your age, your level of maturity, because of what you had to go through, has been raised, and so now you're way ahead of the people your age. Not that there's a competition, but your life experiences have forced you to mature quickly. And it shows in your behavior, it shows in how you care for people, it shows how you are. We got to spend some time at my college's lyceum last year. It was fun to hang out and dance with you and
yeah.
your parents, and but to see you interact with people in such a mature way. If you hadn't gone, you may not be the person that you are today. In fact, it probably is not the person that you'd be today. So we can look back with gratitude, or we can look back with, oh, woe is me, and the woe is me just doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same for like that situation with you is you could have like been really hard on yourself and just been really down and been like, well, what if I could have done something? But like, and you couldn't have. Like, there's
Yeah,
nothing you could have done.
yeah.
Um, but you didn't, and you chose to stay strong,
Yep.
and you got your family reunited, and that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. And the one thing that you can't do as a support person for someone else who's going through this is blame them. The last thing she needed to hear was, "Oh, it's your fault that this is happening." That's not what she wanted to hear, and that would not have produced better results for her. So you have to nurture, you have to care for, and you have to support to the degree that you can. And we all have our limitations, and I get that. But as a human being who cares for another human being, you do all that you can, and understand that the suffering that you might be feeling as a bystander is nothing to the suffering that they might be feeling as a victim of whatever it is that they're going through.
Right. So I think it's a lot of just being aware of your surroundings and the way that other people are feeling. Fortunately for me, I'm like kind of in tune with that. I'm very aware of how other people feel, and I appreciate that. And I love that. And it's like if you're kind of like careless, like you're gonna hurt people without even realize you're hurting people, and you might say something that's really not necessarily like it's her fault. Which, if in your situation, I don't think it was anyone's fault. Like it just happened.
It
It's
just
not.
happened. Yeah.
And I
And you know what? And we never went back to say what caused it. We just know
right.
it happened. And so let's deal with that situation. Let's find out what can we do now that this thing has happened. How can we get her back to a normal life? But more importantly, what tools can she use to recognize if this is going to happen again and get and short circuit that whole process?
Yeah. I mean, I think like a lot of people that would have torn their marriage apart. And you guys did split up for a few months, but
Yep.
you also in the end you came together
Yep.
and you didn't blame each other. And there's no reason to do that. And I think a lot of people nowadays when stuff goes wrong, it's who did it, who caused it. And a lot of the time no one's causing it. It's just it is a thing. It
Yep.
happened and you have to get over it,
Yep.
you know?
It's a thing. It's a thing. And like you, if it didn't make you stronger, then what did you learn from that process?
Right. Right.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. Think that's all. You got anything else to say?
I think I love you. I think you're wonderful, and I appreciate the fact that you're doing this because someone's going to hear many of your stories, and it's going to enable them to regain some hope that they may have lost. And I think the one thing that we can't afford to do is lose any hope. And so,
Oh yeah.
trust in the
Mhm.
process, trust that things usually do work out for the best. It may not be comfortable during the process, but in the end, if you look at the life's possibilities, I think you're going to live a great life, and I hope that everybody does.
Thank you. At DE, we always say comfort sucks, and I think that's the most accurate thing. So, all
Absolutely.
right. Well, thank you for coming on today.
I
Really
appreciate it.
appreciate you.
Thank
I
you.
hope
Thanks for having me.
I love you. I
I
hope
love you.
everyone has a great day. Thank you for tuning in to Pain and Revival podcast. Make sure to tune in next Thursday at 6 a.m. Bye.